not if, when will Donald Trump's Department of Justice lawyers all the way up to the Attorney General lose their bar licenses? That's the new question now that Chief Judge Boseberg in the federal court in D.C. last week said he's about ready to start referring people to have their bar licenses disciplined or taken away. In response, instead of tamping it down and trying to get back into the judge's good graces, no. Pam Bondi had an underling sign a judicial complaint because they found out now that back in March that Judge Boseberg, in a meeting of just judges where he commented that the Trump administration seemed to be disobeying federal court orders and wanted to talk about it. No, that is somehow an unethical breach by a judge that we just found out about, even though it happened 4 months ago. No, it was a retaliatory complaint against a federal judge that's only going to turn the screws tighter on your bar licenses. We break it all down for you on Legal AF, the podcast, and here's a clip. I want to talk about Karen. I want to talk about Boseberg. I want to talk about Haba. I want to talk about Bove. We're going to do a pick 'em. You pick the one that you want to talk about first and you lead. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Well, I'm really outraged by what's happening to Judge Boseberg. I have to say.
Let's go with Boseberg. You're on.
Yeah, that's the one that just really irritates me. That Judge Boseberg is the chief judge in D.C. He's a great judge by all accounts. He's being jerked around by the Trump administration in his various these undocumented immigrant cases. And frankly, the Trump administration has already violated his orders, and he's initiating contempt proceedings as a result. And he went to what's called the judicial conference, where this is the Judicial Conference of the United States. It's a national conference of judges, and not all judges get to go. I think it's one per circuit, not even one per district. And then it's like the chief judge in a circuit, and then the chief judge of the appellate level, and then the Supremes. So it's a small conference, and this is a conference that serves as the policy-making body for the federal courts. So it convenes twice a year, and they consider administrative and policy issues affecting the federal court system, and they make recommendations to Congress concerning legislation involving the judicial branch. This is something that has gone on for long periods of time, and it's not public. It is a private meeting of judges where they can discuss policy issues. They don't discuss individual cases, et cetera. And it's a real opportunity to kind of get together and come up with, talk about concerns and things that are going on. And Pam Bondi filed an official complaint against Judge Boseberg, which, think about this. This is the Attorney General of the United States filing an official complaint against a federal district judge, which is kind of outrageous, and basically said it because it's against him. They filed it with the DC Circuit. It went to a judge there. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Srinivasan, and this basically said that Judge Boseberg made, quote, improper public comments about President Donald J. Trump to the Chief Justice, meaning John Roberts of the United States Supreme Court, and other federal judges that have undermined the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary. Now, what's this about? On March 11th, she says, 2025, Boseberg attended a session of the Judicial Conference of the United States that she characterized as which exists to discuss administrative matters like budgets, security, and facilities. Well, if you look at online what the Judicial Conference of the United States actually is, it says it's a conference that makes policy for federal courts. It's not just about budgets and facilities and security. This is about policy. And so that's just complete false, the way she tries to characterize it of what this is. And the complaint goes on to say that he attempted to improperly influence Chief Justice Roberts and two dozen other federal judges because he expressed what he said was that there are judges, his colleagues, who are of the belief that the Trump administration will disregard rulings of the federal court and trigger a constitutional crisis. Now, again, this is perfectly appropriate. He didn't talk about a particular case. He didn't talk about a preconceived notion about anything. He said, this is what the judges in my district are saying, that they have a concern about this. And he wanted to bring it up to the court, well, to the Chief Justice in this private setting that's supposed to be private and confidential, and a free place to discuss issues. So, she just went off and is accusing him of trying to influence the Chief Justice, saying that he's violated his canon of ethics, that a judge has to uphold the integrity and independence of the judiciary, that he has to act in ways that promotes public confidence, that he shouldn't make public comment on the merits of any matter. He didn't do any of those things. This was absolutely a private conversation. These were not public. This is leaked information from someone who was there. And these were comments relaying concerns of his colleagues. It wasn't anything about preconceived notions of his own. So, it's really an attempt to intimidate Judge Boseberg and other judges so that they don't do things like enforce orders. And, frankly, another thing Pam Bondi said is, the Trump administration always follows court orders. Well, that we know that's not true. We've covered numerous times where they actually haven't done that. And in fact, there was a, I think, 40-something page rule decision that Judge Boseberg had done, basically, essentially spelling out how they violated his order by sending 150 members of a gang that they're alleging are Tren de Aragua, who are Venezuelan, to El Salvador. And that's what this whole thing is about, is that, in fact, that they aren't listening to his order. And so these are concerns that I think are perfectly appropriate to discuss there. And this is absolutely not a problem whatsoever. It would be like saying, if a judge is in chambers talking to his clerks about an issue and they're sort of going back and forth on the issue, that somehow if somebody leaks that or overhears that was made public. That's ridiculous. So it is not a public statement. And certainly he didn't express that he had any preconceived notions. If the reporting is accurate, obviously we weren't there, but it was about his colleagues and concerns and what should they do about this, because no attorney general or president in the history of this country that we know of has overtly defied court orders. In fact, Emile Bove, who you teased already, that was the criminal defense attorney who represented Donald Trump in the Manhattan DA case. They got a conviction, of course, was just elevated to the Third Circuit as a lifetime appointment for a judge, despite the fact that the numerous whistleblowers, I think 4 whistleblowers, have come forward to talk about how unqualified he is for the job, and the fact that he himself said that they are going to basically ignore court orders and use the F word in describing what they're going to do with these court orders. So there was a reason for, he was the number 2 in the Department of Justice up until yesterday when he was given this lifetime appointment. So there is reason to believe that they might, in fact, defy court orders because A, they have said they would, and B, they have done it. And so it was perfectly appropriate thing for him to raise in the forum that he raised it. This is an absolute ridiculous, frivolous accusation that's going to go nowhere. It's ultimately going to be dismissed. Mm-hmm. And frankly, if Chief Justice Roberts had a problem with what Judge Boseberg said to him at this conference, he would have said something then and there. But there's no reporting that he did say anything. This is really just an attempt to delegitimize the justice system, the judicial branch, and frankly, chill judges and chill others from making difficult rulings for fear of retaliation. This is just more bullying on their part.
And the complaint itself is retaliatory because It comes on the heels on last Friday. It was 72 hours after Judge Boseberg had before him Department of Justice lawyers in the JGG case, which deals with the 200 people that were sent in the middle of the night over his court orders, which are also the subject of his probable cause to find criminal contempt that's been held up by 2 Trump judges at the D.C. Court of Appeals, the circuit court, the appellate court for the D.C. federal court. by Judge Rayo and Judge Katsas, who have been just sitting on it since April, just sitting on it. They stayed as contempt proceedings and just sitting on it. And pardon me.
You know what's interesting about this, while you cough and clear your throat, is as I think about this, what if the judge holds a hearing? What's he going to do? Call Chief Justice Roberts to the stand? I mean, he's the witness. Yeah. Like, it's crazy to me, this whole thing. Anyway, Go on.
No. So the retaliation is, so people know the timeline. Thursday, Boseberg calls into his courtroom all the lawyers for the Department of Justice, including the ones who had been outed on the one of three so far whistleblowers against Emil Bove, including Erez Ruveni, who worked under, ultimately under Bove as the number 3 in the Department of Justice, but really under Drew Ensign in the Immigration Litigation Division, and said in a March meeting that's where Emil Bove told people, you are to tell federal judges to go F off and go F you if they ask you anything about the Alien Enemies Act and Trump's orders to deport and remove people. You are not to give them information. You are not to tell them the truth. You're to lie to federal judges. And what Boseberg said out loud on Thursday, this is 3 days before, in retaliation, this complaint was filed against him, is he said, I may not be able to move the probable cause for criminal contempt proceeding forward, and people are frustrated because I'm waiting on the appellate court. But the lawyers in front of me, he always talks about the lawyers in front of them. It's not the first time he's lectured the lawyers like Drew Ensign and others in the DOJ and said, you only got your professional reputation. You've only got your license. You better be telling the truth. You better not be misleading the court. You better not be suborning perjury or being contumacious. He's warned them before. And now he said, this whistleblower that's come out, and that was just about Erez Ruveni. There's been 2 more since then. He said that only strengthens my fact-finding about the criminal contempt proceedings. But now I'm looking at you guys, and I'm strongly considering making a recommendation, a referral to state disciplinary bar associations for disciplinary proceedings against your bar licenses, meaning getting disbarred. And then 3 days later, Pam Bondi citing something that happened in March. This is almost August, right? It happened, whatever it happened in March. Now they're going to try to claim, well, we didn't really learn about it until we were watching Fox News, and John Hugh, a law professor at USC or UCLA, I think UCLA, said he just found out about it from some reporting from the Federalist Society, and they actually cited John Hugh. They, to manufacture this issue and to try to make it unstale. They said, oh, July 17th, he was on television. We saw it. Okay, the event happened in March, and as you laid out perfectly, Karen, he's allowed in this conclave of judges to, at that point, 4 months into the administration, to point out the obvious, is that he questioned it, do we have an administration that is disobeying and being disobedient to federal courts? And if so, what do we do about it? Where else are they supposed to talk about it? And then right after that, he started issuing all of these orders. No, he expressed a genuine concern as the chief judge of DC. Now look, he's been on Donald Trump's shit list and on his radar since he was the second half of the grand jury presiding judge for all things Trump criminal investigation, including the case in front of Judge Chutkan and part of the case in front of Judge Cannon in Mar-a-Lago. And he's the one that eventually ruled that Mike Pence had to testify. And so he's been on the crap list for Donald Trump in this list of, when he went into office with his long list of retaliatory things he's going to do, give me that list. Boseberg's been on there from day one. And so this is all just retaliation. Hopefully Judge Srinivasan, who's the head of the appellate court that sits over Judge Boseberg, will see through this. And what they're looking for is not just a referral, like to have his hands slapped for violating judicial canons. They want to remove from the JGG case. Of course, they want the judge that has him in the crosshairs for a criminal contempt proceeding for lying to him removed from the case, turning the world upside down. My gut is that Srinivasan is going to see through this. He's not going to make a referral. He's going to find nothing wrong with it. It's very similar to the tactics that Donald Trump used against Judge Merchan in the criminal conviction case of his up in New York, where he filed bar complaints, judicial ethics complaints against him, and the guy had to defend himself and get cleared related to that. We will see, and you and I will follow it very closely. Welcome back. We sit at that intersection of law and politics twice a week on a podcast I co-founded 5 years ago called Legal AF. If you didn't know why we call it that, now you do. It's Wednesdays and Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network. We do free versions of it on Legal AF Substack, without commercials, I should say, and Patreon as well. Wednesdays, I do the show with Karen. Saturdays, I do the show with Ben. And then I do, hot takes at the intersection of law and politics about 14 times a week on Midas Touch and about 4 times a day over on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button. Help us with the podcast. We're top 20 on all YouTube podcasts, but we can do better. The brothers are number 1. Let's get on the podium with the brothers. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us on audio podcast downloads. We need the help there too as well. Leave 5-star reviews. This is the way you can help the Legal AF podcast. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.